how to become a more compassionate person. And one of the things that is the first step is to know about the concept in the actuality. Actually, it's not a concept, but I'm going to call this the hologram of humanity. Does anybody know what a hologram is? That you send light through it and it projects, and it's a film that you can sense and you can project, and it's got all what the concept of what a hologram is that if you take this thing that is the hologram and you take one little piece of it, it contains the whole image. It's not like a part of the image, it's the whole thing. Every part of the hologram contains the whole. It's like your DNA. Every cell in your body has the DNA and the blueprint for your whole being. And as a humanity, when you think about God, Goddess, all that is, from that wellspring source of all that is, emerges energy. And from energy, atoms. And atoms come into molecules, and molecules become minerals, and minerals become plants, and plants become animals, and it becomes this evolution of consciousness that is all from the same source. The same oneness is, the same essence is within all of it. The same essence. And I even love when the Bible says God created Adam. Maybe he's talking about atom as the atom, the atomic force, not the man. But God created Adam. But anyways, my point being, I heard that in church once and it just kind of registered and I just remembered it. But the point being is the essence of all that is within everything, and you are part of that essence, and so is everyone else. And to feel compassion is to understand that we are all one. And this is part of the enchantment I'm talking about, a part of understanding that just because somebody's skin color isn't the same, or their religion, or their height, or their look, or their language, or their nationality is different, we need to shore up our differences. And in order to shore up our differences, which, there is a crisis of compassion in our world. And it's because people in the ego wants to say, you're right, I'm wrong, you're good, I'm bad, I'm Republican, you're Democrat, blah, 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 blah. And we need to let that go. We need to see through the eyes of your soul and understanding the hologram of humanity. That what is common to every human being. What makes up humanity is human beings. And human beings, they have 2 arms, they have 2 legs, they have 2 eyes, they have 5 senses. Some of them can be damaged, but they have 5 senses. We all have an imagination. We all have beliefs, thoughts, feelings, choices, and decisions. Regardless of where you live in the world. We all have the same organs and glands. You can go to Europe and get surgery done. They're not going to say, oh, that's an American. They don't have a liver. They don't have a spleen. There's so much commonality, and to recognize the commonality of the oneness of all of us as human beings is the way to tip the scales out of being in the automatic conditioning of seeing the differences. To shore it up, to shore up the differences is to see the hologram of humanity, to see that oneness within life, and to recognize it and to look for it when you're talking to somebody. I've talked about one of the keys to communication. The genuine key of communication is emotional depth. Because you don't know what I've been through in my childhood and my adolescence, and I don't know what you've been through in your childhood and adolescence per se. But we both know what it feels like to be rejected. We both know what it feels like to be humiliated. We know what it feels like to be betrayed. And we know what it feels like to be celebrated. We know what it feels like to be rejoiced. We know what it feels like to be loved. And it's because of that allows us to connect and communicate. It's the common bond, and every human being has that. They've often said this: a smile is universal. And you can go anywhere in the world and look at somebody and know if they're happy, they're sad, they're angry, it's the common bond. And we all have that regardless. And we all have a soul and a spirit. We're all an expression and reflection of God, Goddess, all that is. And to have compassion is about understanding that and being able to recognize and to value that. Even the people that are the most different, the ones who challenge you the most, are your greatest teachers about your own stuff coming to the surface. Because it's often easier to judge somebody else with what's wrong with them, because I don't want to see it within myself. And so it's like I see it in others and I judge them, but I don't own it within myself. That's called shadow. Your shadow. I refuse to see it. It's behind me. It's dark and I don't want to look at it. But it comes up and at me through other people. And that's the dark shadow. There's also the light shadow. The things that I don't own about myself that are beautiful. The things that I won't own about my power and my responsibility and my strength and my love. And I refuse to see it in me. Then I admire it in those other people that I put up on a pedestal or I admire and I respect. I see that within them. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be that way. You could. But you got to own it. But you see it in others. So you see the shadow is a reflection of what you deny. Not just elbowing out the ugly parts, the pain and the anger and the rage that you see in others and judge, but it's also the love and the light and the beauty and the power that you also have elbowed out and admire and respect in others. So that's part of it, is that hologram of humanity, to let yourself look through the eyes of your soul and to look for the commonality. Because you know what we pay attention to is what we're going to see. I've talked about that for eons of time. What you focus your attention on expands in your reality. If you focus on what's wrong about you, that's all you're going to see. And guess what? There's stuff wrong about everybody. But if you focus on what's right about you, what's good about you, what's true about you, shift that to make a conscious choice. And that's the second thing, is all of these exercises in becoming a conduit of compassion requires you being fully conscious rather than being asleep. To wake up, being asleep keeps you asleep, and I can't feel compassion. Well, I need to wake up and be conscious and be aware and understand and value and know. So that's part of being a conduit of compassion, is being awake, being conscious, being in the present moment. You can't be somewhere else thinking about something else and feel compassion for somebody. You need to be connected and in the present moment. So practice being in the present moment. How do I do that? Learn to listen. The second component. Learn to listen. Learn to listen, paying attention, and hearing. It's different to just listen, but to let yourself hear what's being said. When you're talking to somebody, and they're talking about their bad day at work. Listening is beautiful, but hearing what's behind the words, between the sentences, to hear about their struggle, their pain, to hear it, not again them talking about it, but hear the essence that when you have compassion and you connect, you can hear things that are beyond the words that they speak. And so learning to listen, which means I need to pay attention and be in the present moment. I need to be open and connected. I can't be shut down and self-important and worrying about my own needs and what's going on with me and thinking about what else, or when I'm talking to somebody, thinking about what I'm going to say and not listening. Those kind of people that just, when you're talking to them, they're not really hearing what you're saying. They're sitting there thinking about their response. And to listen, to create space. Compassion is about creating a space of safety for that person. Like I mentioned, it begins with caring. And so you can, even when you're wanting to be more compassionate towards somebody in your life, let's say you and a friend are going out to lunch, and you're going to have lunch or breakfast or brunch or whatever, you're going to hang out with that person, to set your intention before you go there. I want to be and practice being more compassionate with them. And so I'm going to create a space, and I can even see it as a bubble, that my energy field and their energy field create together, this bubble around us. And I can ask my spirit to fill that bubble with light, to fill that bubble, that space, their energy field as well as mine, with hope, with peace, with presence, to fill it with compassion. And then to sit down and to be present and to listen, and beyond just listening, to really hear what they're saying, what they're trying to communicate, beyond the words, between the sentences. It's being compassionate. It's being connected, being vulnerable enough to open your heart and to feel what they're going through, to be willing to feel their pain, to be empathic, to be open, to be connected, to be empathic, to listen, to learn and to listen and to hear is a big part of what allows for compassion, your spirit to come out and to connect with their spirit. And when it does, there's a sizzle, there's a crackle in your auric field. You can feel this oneness, this timelessness. We had this conversation at lunch and we got into it and we were talking, and it's like we were one, it's like our minds had intercourse with each other. My mind and their mind became one. My emotions and their emotions became one. My consciousness and their consciousness became one. And we suspended time and space. And it was so rewarding. It was so deep. And I felt like I got to know this person on a level that I feel greater closeness and belonging and tenderness and intimacy. That's compassion. That's the magic of compassion. And allow yourself to be a conduit and to spark the compassion with that person that you are talking with. So these are all ways to become a conduit of compassion. So also, the next thing is to ponder, reflect, and to let in the all that is. That I want to be loved by God, Goddess, all that is them, which is everything. See, my spirituality isn't something I do. It isn't a book I read. It isn't a church or a temple I go to once a week. It's not about that. It's about my living, breathing relationship with life. From the mineral to the plant to the animal to the human kingdom to beyond, the spiritual kingdom. It is my relationship to my emotions is my spirituality. Is it functional or dysfunctional? It's my relationship to my body, this body temple that's housing my soul and spirit. Do I criticize it? Do I judge it? Do I hate my body? Do I look at how old it's getting with every wrinkle? Or do I celebrate it and love it and nurture it and honor it? That's my spirituality. It's the way I live my life. And everyone's spiritual. Everyone has a spirituality. Everybody has a relationship to their body, to their finances, to their other people. And all of that is an expression and reflection of all that is. And that, when you just ponder that, think about that, reflect on that, let it in. Don't just let it graze over the top of your head, but take some time to meditate, think about that. I'm connected to life, and life is connected to me. And what I do matters to life. What I think and feel matters to life. Who I am matters to all that is. And to be conscious and to grow and to develop your spirituality is about being conscious of what you are contributing. Being conscious of knowing every thought I think. Even when I have a judgmental thought, it's creating pain on some level. Some level. So it's not about, I'm going to control my judgmentalness. No, I need to let it go. And when I find myself doing it, when I catch myself judging others, judgmentaling, that's a new word, judging others, stop it. Recognize it. Acknowledge I'm doing it. What am I? And one of the things why we judge is because there's something I don't want to feel. This person is triggering something I don't want to feel, and therefore I'm judging them to separate myself from my feelings. And to recognize, acknowledge, to forgive yourself. And to look at what am I afraid to feel. And then as you forgive, you can change into being discerning. You can change into being more understanding. You can change into say, you know what, I'm not going to project onto them. I'm going to listen and hear what they're all about. I'm going to have humility to let this be brand new, to let this situation be different. Not to project the past onto it, not to judge it and project, but to be in the present moment, to listen, to learn, to hear, and to love. To let your love shine, let your compassion shine. It can be the love of just being heard. You know how many people don't feel heard? You know, I have several friends that I connect with and talk with. And some of them are astounded sometimes. They'll be like, I'll come up and I'll talk to them and I'll say, oh yeah, so what happened with that event that took place last week and how did it go? And they're like, oh, you remember I talked about that? I'm like, yeah, I pay attention. There's an old saying, love pays attention to detail. God is love. And he pays attention to every detail. God, Goddess, all that is, knows your name. And knows everything about you. And knows your pain. And when you can let yourself pay attention, to be present, to listen, to let yourself hear, you are being compassionate. And you can let that heart open, to be vulnerable. And it does take a little bit of vulnerability to let your heart open to connect more deeply with the other person. But you've all had those conversations that I described, haven't you, with somebody? You know, it might have been a couple glasses of wine that got you to be vulnerable enough to connect, but whatever it took at that time, but you don't need the glass of wine. That actually probably hindered the impact and helped. But my point being is that you can consciously create this map. And guess what? The world needs people in our world to listen to each other and not to judge, and to seek to understand what they're going through, to understand the commonality of our emotions, to understand that we are all one humanity, that we are all from the same source. We are all divine. And my relationship, my spirituality is my relationship to this person. Everybody that crosses my path is my spirituality. Another tip and secret that I can say to help you, when especially if you find yourself judging or going into a place of judgment, or you're feeling yourself pulling away from somebody in a conversation, you're feeling uncomfortable, is to look into their eyes, to see that person, that adult there that's standing in front of you, that grown up, and try to see them as a child. What must their childhood been like when they're being so mean and cruel? What must their childhood have been like? And to try to see their inner child, to try to sense what that little boy looked like. This adult man in front of you, to wonder what they were as a little boy. To see their innocence can help you to let go of the judgment and to be more compassionate. To sense and see in your heart and mind that little child they once were, that woman and that little girl she once was. It can help you to be more understanding. Another thing you can do is to let your parents, let them be people. Stop projecting mother and father and daddy and mommy and that's nothing wrong with it. They're going to always be your mother and father. Whether they're alive or not, they're still going to be your mother and father. But to see them as people, like I did with my dad when I could really see him as a man, and how terrified he must have been on that boat at night in the war, and see his friend get killed in front of him and fall into the water. That put so much of the jigsaw puzzle pieces together and allowed me to open my heart to a deeper level with my dad. To let yourself do the same. To let yourself choose to be more conscious of being a conduit of compassion. And when you find yourself judging, make a list of all your judgments about yourself. Start with yourself, it's easy. Start about your judgments of people, and then recognize them and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to forgive myself for being judgmental. I'm going to forgive myself. And that ego in me that does it to try to feel safe, to try to feel superior, to try to be self-important, to try to be in control, to try to avoid any feeling, to try to, be indifferent. And now I'm going to take my power back from that part of me and be willing to feel. And to even be willing to feel the uncomfortable feelings of another. Because when you are compassionate and you are connected to somebody, there is a spiritual healing that takes place. That's what I say. Compassion is an evolved form of caring, and it heals. It's a healing force. To be with somebody who's compassionate, you can feel it. And it reaches beyond space and time, and it connects to you. And it can shift and change something within you. That's what the magic and the beauty and the grace of compassion can do. That feels complete to me for now, as far as what I want to share today. I hope you've got some value from it. I hope you got some insights, as I always try to over-deliver in all my classes and give as much as I can.